Good morning. It is 9:25 a.m. Mountain Time on Saturday, November 30th, 2019. I'm Christiana Ellis, and you've been up for a little bit. This is 5 more minutes. So I'm actually sitting with my back to a window because I was thinking, wouldn't it be kind of cool to have the winter naturescape behind me? But this happens when the window's open. So, yeah, like, can't really see anything. But I could point the camera briefly for y'all. We've got some high winds right now. But overall, should be calmed down again by the time I'm flying out back to Boston tonight. I have a late night flight getting me in early tomorrow morning, just in time for a winter storm warning in Boston. Fortunately, it's not really scheduled to start until after I arrive, so should be fine. Shouldn't impact me too much, I don't think. Anyway, we'll see, I guess. But in any event, heading out later tonight. We're probably going to try to go see Knives Out today, which I'm happy about because I've been wanting to see that one. It looks good to me. Last night we watched the rest of The Irishman, which, if you're not familiar, is Martin Scorsese's latest movie, which is released simultaneously in the theaters and on Netflix. We watched it on Netflix, and it's 3.5 hours long. And it is absolutely one of his, mob movies. But, it briefly we can take the aside of, is it possible actually to make an anti-mob movie, or an anti-war movie? That idea of, because depicting something on screen kind of inherently glamorizes it, and so it's a question of no matter, think about Goodfellas, no matter how awful they try to make Henry Hill's life turn out by the end of that movie, people still think that the earlier parts are cool, and that's all anybody talks about. So, you could make that case that it's hard to make an anti-crime movie, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how to say what I'm trying to say there. I think you guys probably gather the basics of it, though. But this movie certainly tries its hardest of all of them so far by really making, there's, I'm getting ahead of myself. Basic premise of the movie is that we have Robert De Niro narrating for us the story of his life as a very old man in a nursing home. And at that point in the movie, he's being depicted as actually even older than Robert De Niro actually is. He's made up to look even older. But he's still, even when they used the digital de-aging technology for the earliest chronological scenes, he's still, middle-aged. Also, doesn't look like, that's not what he looked like at that age, but whatever, it's fine. But he is a character who ends up getting involved with organized crime, and growing, up through that, and his career, where he's theoretically a truck driver, but then also a hitman. It's based on the book called I Hear You Paint Houses, as in you paint houses in blood by killing people. And so that's the story. And a big part of the story is that he is hired. Part of his assignment is that he's supposed to be close to and help take care of Jimmy Hoffa, who's played by Al Pacino. Now, if you're too young to remember Jimmy Hoffa, I don't remember him live, but I remember the jokes about like, oh, nobody knows where he's buried, that sort of thing. But like, so, Jimmy Hoffa for me is famous as a guy who got disappeared and never found again. Probably dead, but nobody could prove it. Because where is he, right? And so Al Pacino plays Jimmy Hoffa. Joe Pesci plays Russell Buffalino, who is like head of a Pennsylvania crime family who, and a big part of the movie is Robert De Niro's character Frank being kind of increasingly torn between these two characters who both feel very much like mentors to him and whom were once aligned but now are increasingly moving apart from each other to the point where there's conflict, but he's kind of become friends of both. But he, it is the nature of the Frank's character that he kind of just, for a hitman, he's a very passive guy. And when I say passive, I don't mean pacifist. I mean, he does what he's told and acts like it was inevitable, like it couldn't have ever been any different. I have to, and so he takes no like moral responsibility for himself in these actions, and until there's finally conflict between these two guys, and that puts him in, for like the first time in his life, in a position of being told to do something he does not want to. And how he resolves that, can be left to the, you can watch the movie and I won't get into it. You can probably guess just by the nature of who Jimmy Hoffa is. But that element of it, I won't say any more about it, except that the movie does not act like that's something that's supposed to come as a huge surprise. Jimmy Hoffa's character is introduced as, oh, you probably know him as that guy who got disappeared. But we have an interesting running motif throughout the movie, though, of one of Frank's daughters in particular, just silently observing him doing various things. And then, and it's implied that she, along with us as observers, can judge Frank in the way he won't judge himself, recognizing that his behavior is not ordinary or inevitable or any of that. And so there's some amazing performances in this movie, even from actors whom we kind of expected of, right? Al Pacino gets to be his scenery chewing ham bone self in a character that is, by all reputation, was actually kind of like that. So it's a good role for him to do that, and he's compelling in the role. Joe Pesci, despite the fact that in previous Scorsese outings he was like the agent of chaos, the unpredictable hothead, right? When in this one he's very reserved and understated, but very good. And De Niro is, everyone is kind of, De Niro is doing the De Niro thing, but in a role that's very well suited for it. And so often he's really closed down emotionally that once you finally get to the scenes where he's not as closed down, it really comes across as very powerful. It's very good. I think it's worth watching all 3.5 hours of it. Now, I mean, if you are someone who just absolutely hates mob movies and Scorsese movies, I don't know why you would necessarily take this as an excuse for this to be the one you watch. I don't know, but it's pretty good. I liked it. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes, and I'll be home in Boston. Fingers crossed.